Why is your morning coffee suddenly double the price? Why are store shelves emptier every week? What if I told you this is just the tip of the iceberg and 2025 will make 2020 look easy? Let's break down what's really coming, why it's worse than you think, and what you can do to get ahead. Welcome to Voice on Pages, and let's get started.
Okay, let's get right into it. What we're looking at here is a perfect storm. This isn't just one single problem, like a traffic jam in the global economy. No, this is a complete system overload. And you can actually measure this overload. We're seeing a massive 40% annual spike in supply chain disruptions. And that's everything from, factory fires that just shut down production to geopolitical tensions that reroute entire shipping fleets. The big takeaway here, this whole thing is accelerating, it is not slowing down. And then you've got the human element, the things we do to ourselves. Escalating trade wars have slapped tariffs, averaging about 25%, on essential imports. We're talking electronics, steel, you name it. And this isn't some abstract political chess game. It's a direct tax on the things we use every single day. And that cost, it gets passed straight to you at the checkout. On top of all that, we have this new, totally unpredictable reality. A staggering 99% of supply chain executives are saying that climate change is directly hitting their operations. Extreme weather is no longer a rare thing. It's a constant, costly disruptor that makes any kind of long-term planning almost impossible. So here's the real kicker. These four things, they're not happening in a vacuum. They're actually feeding each other, creating this relentless, vicious cycle of chaos. A trade war makes goods more expensive, then a labor strike stops them from even moving, a conflict creates massive detours, and then a single hurricane can wipe a critical port right off the map. So, how does this global storm actually hit you at home? Let's follow the breadcrumbs and see how all this global chaos leads to real, tangible, everyday problems. This is where those big headlines start to hit your wallet. So beyond the physical world, there are these hidden digital dangers that most of us never even think about. The software that literally moves all of our goods is under constant attack. Cyberattacks that target supply chains have skyrocketed by an incredible 431%. A single hack can halt shipments, spoil food, and create shortages overnight. It just reveals how incredibly fragile the system really is. And here it is. This is how those abstract global forces translate into actual numbers on your receipts. An avian flu outbreak? Boom. Eggs are nearly $6 a dozen. Tariffs on steel? Well, that can add $1,000 to the price of a new car. And all those little component tariffs? That could be another grand for a new phone. This is the direct cost of disruption, right here. But this crisis isn't hitting everyone the same way, not even close. The data is pretty clear that lower-income households are being forced to make some really tough choices, like cutting back on essentials or buying cheaper, lower-quality substitutes. Meanwhile, higher-income households can just absorb the costs. It's a crisis that's making existing inequalities even worse. Okay, I know, faced with all this, it's really easy to feel powerless, but you're not. This isn't about building a bunker in your backyard, it's about building resilience. So here's a clear, actionable plan to get prepared without panicking. The goal here is simple: resilience, not hoarding. And it's really just a 3-step process. First, build up your supply gradually. Second, don't put all your eggs in one retail basket. And third, use a little technology to stay ahead of the price hikes. So let's break down the most important part of that first step. This distinction right here is absolutely crucial. It's about being strategic versus just being reactive. See, smart stockpiling is methodically acquiring a buffer of items your family actually needs, non-perishables, medications. Panic buying is just an emotional reaction that empties shelves and creates the very shortages that people are afraid of. Being smart keeps you safe and it doesn't make the problem worse for everybody else. All right, finally, we really need to understand that this isn't some temporary blip that we can just wait out. We are right in the middle of a fundamental long-term shift in how our entire world gets supplied. This quote from industry experts, it really says it all. The era of cheap, predictable, instant everything is probably over. The new name of the game is adaptation. Waiting for things to go back to normal isn't a strategy, because this volatility is the new normal. So what does the road ahead actually look like? Well, according to the experts, we're heading into the peak of all this disruption this year. The next couple of years will be all about a slow, probably painful adaptation as supply chains start to become more regional. By 2028, we might see some stability,
but it's going to come at a permanently higher cost. So managing our expectations is really key here.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve, you have to learn to read the tea leaves. Start watching for these subtle signals. When a company quietly pushes out its delivery times, or a supplier vaguely blames macro uncertainty for their forecast cuts, they're basically telling you that another wave of shortages or price hikes is just around the corner. Ultimately, this whole crisis forces every one of us to ask a really tough question. The world we built over the last 30 years was based on this promise of cheap and easy, and that promise is broken. This is about way more than just economics. It's about how we're all going to need to adapt our lifestyles and our expectations to survive in this new reality. The supply chain collapse of 2025 isn't just a headline. It's about to hit your life in ways you haven't imagined. What shortages or price hikes have you already noticed? Drop your experience in the comments, help each other out, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a crucial update.